Good morning, all of you. Today we are going to start with the next part of this chapter, that is transmission of nerve impulse. The neurons are cells with some special features. That means they can be excited. So that impulses are actually gives this excitement. This excitement is nothing but an impulse. So impulses are a kind of wave which may be a bioelectrical, that means which is related to the ions, or electrochemical disturbances which passing along the neuron. So wave are disturbances of this bioelectrical or electrical biochemical wave which passing in the neuron, which we can term as stimulus. So transmission of the nerve impulse along the long nerve fiber, that is axon, we can say the axon tube, is a result of electrical charges across the neuronal membrane during the conduction of an excitation. So each neuron has charged cellular membrane with the voltage. A voltage, that means we can say a potential difference, which is different on the outer and the inner side of the membrane. So till then, when this potential difference is not formed, it is completely stable. So the plasma membrane separates the outer and inner solutions of different chemical compounds, but having approximately the same total number of ions. That's why no movement of ions takes place, means no stimulus, no bioelectrical chemicals are flowing. So external tissue fluid has both, that means outside that neuron there is Na plus and K plus, sodium and potassium ions are present, but there is predominance of sodium and chlorine also there. That's why it remains uncharged, while K plus is predominant within the fiber or in the intercellular fluid, so which is not balanced. So this condition of resting nerve is also called a polarized state, just because of the presence of more amount of free potassium ion, and it is established by maintaining an excess of sodium on the outside the neuron. So on the inside there is an excess of potassium along with the large negatively charged protein molecules and nucleic acid. We can say the negativity is also maintained inside the neuron, and potassium ions will be remain as in a resting condition. Some amount of sodium and potassium is always leaks across the membrane as membrane is permeable. So the sodium and potassium pump is in the membrane actively restores the ions to their appropriate site. Against the concentration of electrochemical gradient, sodium ion is being forced out and potassium is being forced inside the membrane, and this process is called sodium pump, that is sodium potassium exchange pump. This is an active process, that's why it requires ATP energy. So difference in the distribution of sodium and potassium ions on the two sides of the membrane produces a potential difference of minus 50 to minus 100 millivolts, that we can say in average it is minus 70 millivolts. So potential difference seen in the resting nerve is thus called the resting potential, which is minus 70 millivolts, and it is mainly due to the differential permeability of the resting membrane, which is much more permeable to potassium than to sodium. That's why which makes imbalance for the potassium sodium. This results in the slightly more amount of potassium ions diffusing out than the sodium. So sodium that moving inside, so potassium is moving inside than the sodium, we can say, and causing slight difference in the polarity. So also ions like negatively charged proteins and nucleic acids inside the cell makes the cell overall change negative on the inside and positive charge on the outside. So that we can term as the potential difference is formed now. The nerve impulse membrane not only has leak channels but also has many gated channels for sodium and potassium ions. These are also called voltage gated channels. These channels enable the neuron to change its membrane potential to active potential in response to a stimulus. The sodium and potassium gated channels are separate to transport of both these ions if separately done. So however, during the resting potential, both these gates are closed and membrane resting potential is maintained. Generation of nerve impulse. Depolarization. The origin and maintenance of resting potential depends on the original perfect state. Any change or disturbance to the membrane will cause sodium to enter into the membrane and lower the potential difference, that is lesser than the minus 70 millivolts. This makes the membrane more permeable to sodium ions, so there will be rapid influx of sodium ions, and this property is peculiar to a nerve membrane. So voltage gated sodium and potassium channels are special in two ways. First, they can change the potential difference of the membrane as per the stimulus received while they are getting a kind of stimulus outside, and also the gates operate separately and are self-closing. So during resting potential, both gates are closed and resting potential is maintained. However, during depolarization, the sodium gates open but not potassium gates. So this causes the Na plus to rush into the axon and bring about the depolarization, that is opposite of the polarity. So extracellular fluid, that is ECF, becomes electronegative with respect to the inner membrane, which becomes electropositive because more amount of potassium ions has now entered inside the cell. So the value of action potential is plus 30 millivolts to plus 60 millivolts, and this triggers the depolarization in the next part while it itself starts going to repolarization. So the resting axon, which shows the sodium potassium ions which are actually equal at the same and sodium potassium pump, that channels are closed now. But in the polarized condition where they forms the more positive ions outside, that's why they turn into the depolarization, that's potassium and sodium ions are coming out. A potassium ion is coming out and sodium ions are enters inside the neuron, where this polarized and depolarized, again repolarization takes place in the third. So what is repolarization? The change in the polarity from the depolarized back to the original state is done by the process of repolarization, and it occurs after a short interval that is called a refractory period. The large number of sodium ions on the inside causes a drop of permeability of the membrane to sodium, and at the same time making it more permeable to potassium ions by opening the potassium voltage gates, slowly closing the Na plus gates. This action is localized activity. K plus ions pass out very rapidly as compared to slow entry of sodium ions. In this period, sodium ions gates are closed, potassium ions gates are open, and sodium potassium pumps becomes operational. So this process producing a wave of stimulation, that is one after another. There are different charges are flowing actually, that we can say, which are formed inside the neuron, which forms a waves inside it, that we can say biochemical or bioelectrical charges are flowing. That is the stimulation that is causing depolarization, and after that there is repolarization, and this repeated continuously up to the end of the axon terminal. So it is self-propagating process, and in medullated nerves, the stimulating fatty mycelium sheath prevents flow of ions between the axoplasm and ECF, that is extracellular fluid. So the transport pump and gated channels can operate only in the origin of needs of Ranvier, where the mycelium sheath is absent. So the action potential cannot travel as the wave of membrane depolarization. It has to pump from node to node, and this process is called saltatory conduction. It is at the rate of 120 meter per second. It is faster than the continuous conduction in non-modulated fiber. These are the characteristics which are explained in last 4 points. Now we are going to start an actual human nervous system, which is made up of three. One, first, there is central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and the autonomous nervous system. A little bit nervous system which actually includes brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system at the periphery of the body, which includes the cranial nerves and spinal nerves. And the autonomous nervous system which works its own, that is the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord, in which we are going to start with the brain. where the forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain, these are the part of the brain that we are going to study in detail. Central nervous system, CNS. Central nervous system mainly consists of brain and spinal cord along with the dorsal axis, mid and the dorsal axis. Brain is enclosed within the brain box, that is the cranium of the skull, whereas the spinal cord runs through the canal of the vertebral column. So brain and spinal cord, brain which is in the cranium, that is the skull, and there is a cavity, a hollow structure inside the vertebral column that we have studied in the earlier previous standard. So brain and spinal cord are covered by three protective membranes, that are the covering, shiny covering, which are termed as Mennings, and these Mennings are dura mater, arachnoid matter, and pia mater. Dura mater, which is the outermost tough, vascular, thick, fibrous layer, and present near the cranium, which actually prevents the friction between the cranium and the brain. It separates from the underlying arachnoid matter by the subdural space, and this space between the subdural space between the dura mater and the cranium, which actually fills with the serous fluid, which actually act as a shock absorber and prevents also the friction of the brain to the cranial skull, cranium, that is skull. Arachnoid matter, which is the middle thin non-vascular layer of connective tissues. It is lack of connective tissues, that's why it is non-vascular. So there is not supply of anything, having a web-like appearance and separated from the pia mater below the narrow subarachnoid space, which is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, which is important for the brain and which is a kind of circulating fluid inside the central nervous system, that because it also carried inside the spinal cord, because spinal cord is hollow and that cavity is filled with the CSF. That's why it is termed as cerebrospinal fluid, that we are going to study in detail afterward. Pia mater, it is innermost delicate highly vascular membrane directly attached to the brain and which lies in close contact with the CNS, that is brain and spinal cord. CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, it is a lymph-like extracellular fluid secreted by the choroid plexus of pia mater, present inner to the subcarotid space in the ventricles of the brain. Ventricles, that are the parts of the brain within the central canal of the spinal cord. That is the hollow structure, that is spinal cord, which contains CSF. It is secreted by pia mater, choroid plexus, and the ependymal cells lining and the ventricles of the brain and central canal of spinal cord. Three openings of the roof of medulla oblongata help to draining out the CSF from brain to the outside. That means the spreading over and in the spinal cord. CSF is slightly alkaline fluid and with a specific gravity of 1.005. That means it's heavy than the other fluid in our body. A total 100 to 120 cc of CSF. cc is a measuring unit of a small liquid of CSF, which is present in around the central nervous system. Functions of cerebrospinal fluid: it acts as a shock absorber, and that's why it prevents the brain and the spinal cord from the mechanical injury when we are actually getting hurt or any kind of accident, or even a simple when we falls down. It also maintains constant pressure inside cranium because it is liquid and it is heavy, so it can create a pressure. Helps in exchange the nutrients and waste, that because it act like a kind of blood, that is fluid tissue in the central nervous system, so it helps in exchange of nutrients and waste between the blood and the brain tissue. It helps in supply of oxygen to the brain, of course, which is received from the blood, and now which is responsible for the more brain, which is responsible for the more consumer of the oxygen. So it gets blood from the CSF, and it also protects the brain from the desiccation. Desiccation is the drying, evaporation. Human brain. Out of the brain, it is called the encephalology. The study of the brain, it is called as encephalology. There are parts of brain, that is forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Forebrain, which consists of olfactory lobes. First, forebrain, which consists of olfactory lobes, cerebrum, diencephalon. First, olfactory lobes, highly reduced in human brain and hidden under cerebrum, which except ventral side. So each lobe which consists of an olfactory peduncle or olfactory bulb, the peduncle or stalk we can say. Cerebrum. It is the largest part of the brain, making up to 85% of total brain and divided into the right and left cerebral hemisphere by means of deep median fissure, a deep line which actually passes through the center of the brain from the top we can say. Two hemispheres internally connected to each other by thick band of nerve fibers, that is corpus callosum, and the outer surface of cerebrum is called cerebral cortex, while the deep inner part, which is the cerebral medulla. The cerebral cortex has outer gray matter and inner medulla composed of white matter. So the surface of each cerebral hemisphere is greatly folded by many convolutions of gyri and sulci. Gyri are convolutions, that gyri are kind of upward, what we can say, a kind of outward growth, and sulci are a kind of internal grooves. This greatly increase the surface area. So these are a kind of wavy forms. That's why it increases the surface area for accommodation of the large number of nerve cells. Each cerebral hemisphere is further divided into 4 main lobes by 3 deep sulci, and these are central sulcus, parieto-occipital sulcus, and lateral sulcus. Central sulcus, which separates from the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe, that we can check in the diagram afterward. Parietal occipital sulcus separates parietal lobe from the occipital lobe, and the lateral or sylvian sulcus, which separates the temporal lobe from the frontal and parietal lobes. Since these sulci are not complete, lobes are not clearly demarcated from each other, a fifth median lobe called insula or insular cortex is folded deep within the lateral sulcus. Gray matter in cerebral cortex mainly consists of cell bodies of billions of neurons along with the non-medullated fibers and dendron. So the neurons, which are the cell bodies, and that all dendrons of that neurons are opens into the gray matter. And white matter mainly has axons of myelinated nerves. Axon part of the nerves. Functional areas of cerebrum. Frontal lobes, they have motor area which controls the voluntary motor activities or movements of muscle, that means are voluntary movements we can say. Premotor area is higher center for involuntary movements and autonomous nervous system. Associations area is for coordination between the sensation and movements, that means what kind of stimulus received and what kind of reaction we are going to give we can say. Broca's area or motor speech area, which translates the thoughts into speech. So expression of emotions, intelligence, willpower, memory, personality areas are located in the frontal lobe. So that's why we have to think at least a little bit before talking. That is the bronchus areas part. Parietal lobe, where we can feel the sensation of pain, pressure, temperature, and also a taste, that is gustoreceptors. Temporal lobes, it contains centers for smell, olfactory lobe. We can say the hearing, auditory, and speech and emotions. Occipital lobes, they have visual area mainly for the sense of vision. Here the frontal, parietal, occipital, cerebellum, brainstem, and temporal, all lobes are explained in the diagram that you can check in your textbook also simultaneously while reading this, while watching this video. Area of contact between the temporal and parietal and occipital lobes is center, that is the Wernicke's area or intelligence center. It helps in the understanding of spoken and written words. That means the coordination between the perception of the code to its actual meaning we can say, where we must know what kind of alphabet it is and how it could be pronounced. The cerebrum that shows all three types of areas: sensory, motor, and association area, where the basal nuclei or basal ganglia are gray masses present within the white matter. That gray area, sorry, the basal nuclei, where we can say the gray masses present within the white matter, where it is mixed, we can say, or correction between the gray and the white matter, or lying on the lateral sides of the thalamus. So the basal ganglia or nuclei of cerebrum, which receives neurotransmitters from the various parts. They help the cortex in execution of activities at the subcutaneous level. For example, writing slow or rapid typing, that means the speed of writing or typing, especially on WhatsApp, okay, or while playing a PUBG, we can say even. So corpus striatum at the floor of cerebrum is the largest basal nucleus. Diencephalon. Diencephalon mainly contains the epithalamus, thalamus, and hypothalamus. It lies below the corpus callosum and above midbrain. It encloses a single cavity termed third ventricle or diastole, which communicates between the two lateral ventricles or parasole of cerebrum through a narrow opening which is called foramen of Monro, while posteriorly to the fourth ventricle or metasole through a narrow duct of the Sylvius or iter. Epithalamus, the anterior thin non-nervous roof of the diencephalon, where the epithalamus is shown in this diagram, which cannot be seen because it is a roof. So epithalamus is fused with the pia mater to form anterior carotid plexus, and it is connected to the pineal gland through a pineal stalk. So here the pineal gland and the pineal stalk you can check out. Earlier pineal gland was thought to be vestigial, but later it has been found to produce the hormone, that is melatonin, which is the sleep-inducing hormone and also related to the reproductive behavior of a person. Thalamus is the lateral thick-walled diencephalon. Here it is thalamus. So thalamus is the lateral thick wall of diencephalon. They mainly contain gray matter, habencular commissure, which connects the two thalami, that is the right and left, we can say. So different parts of the brain are interconnected by the RAS, reticular activating system, through the thalamus, called relay matter, as it transmits all sensory impulses except those of olfactory, that is except the smell, olfactory, to the cerebellum, because it is totally separate. Hypothalamus, it forms the floor of the diencephalon, which is richly supplied with the blood vessels. That is the hypothalamo-hypocele portal vein, the vein which supplies blood, vein which actually receives blood from the brain, which helps in the feedback mechanism for the hormonal control also. It maintains homeostasis, that means temperature of the body, internal equilibrium, that means the pH, and a kind of a fluidity of the blood in, or and arrest all the fluids in the body. And involuntary behavior control, that means activities that are not in our urge. Like in the cerebellum, the hypothalamus also contains hypothalamic nuclei in its white matter with neurosecretory cells, so which involved in the production of the hormone oxytocin and vasopressin that we are going to study in detail in endocrine system. The hypothalamus is a link between nervous and endocrine system, and it has higher centers for endocrine system. It regulates heart rate, respiration, blood pressure, body temperature, water, and electrolyte balance, of course with the help of producing hormones only. So it has center of hunger, thirst, sleep, fatigue, satiety center, secretion of glands of stomach and intestine. Also produces the neurohormones that stimulate the pituitary gland, and a complex neural circuit called the limbic system. So this is the part that we are studying now, which is actually a kind of middle part which connects our central system from nervous system to the chemical control of our body. That's endocrine system, we can say. A complex neuronal circuit called the limbic system is formed by the hypothalamus, amygdala, that parts of the epithalamus and thalamus, hippocampus, and the other areas. It appears to be responsible for emotional reactions, motivational drives, and memory. The floor of hypothalamus, which all are psychological things, emotional reactions, motivational drives, and memory, all are psychological. That means all we can say totally depend on again hormonal changes. So the floor of the hypothalamus continues as a downward projection called the hypocele stalk or infundibulum, because it's somewhat narrow at the base and broad at the apex, which continues which connects it to the hypothalamus, that is to the pituitary gland, both physically and functionally, that is by the secretion of the neurotransmitters. The inferior surface of the hypothalamus also bears the optic chiasma, that is the crossing of the two optic nerves, and a pair of mammillary bodies, that's important for the memory. Here we have finished with the first part of the brain. Now turn to the second part, that's midbrain. It is located between the diencephalon and the pons varolii. It contains the cerebral aqueduct or iter that connects the third and fourth ventricles. The corpora quadrigemma are four rounded elevations on the dorsal surface of the midbrain, which are formed by the two superior colliculi and two inferior colliculi. Superior means the above one and inferior means the down one. So superior colliculi are involved in the visual reflexes, that we can say getting stimulus, and two inferior colliculi are relay centers of the auditory because they are down, so they are related to the ear, and they operate when necessary to move the head to hear sounds more distinctly. That means the movement of our node or to tilt down our head to hear something. The midbrain or its inferior surface, two thick fibers, ascending and descending nerve fibers, are present, called cerebral peduncles or cora cerebri. These tracts of ascending and descending nerve fibers from reticular activating system RAS and connect the cerebrum with midbrain. Near the center of the midbrain is a mass of gray matter scattered within the white matter. It is called the red nucleus and plays important role in the controlling posture and muscle tone. So how we are actually showing our muscle tone, that forms our posture of our body. Also modifying some motor activities and motor coordination, that means coordination between the two activities like walking and all. Hindbrain we are going to study in the next part.